Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Matthew LaBosco, vitality expert, movement and mindset specialist. Welcome to the show, Matthew.
Oh, thank you so much, AJ. It's great to be here.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you for coming onto the show. So we'll be talking about, how to manage things when feeling overwhelmed. So what, according to you, is feeling overwhelmed? But before that, let me ask you, because you'll be talking about, some health things and your advice and about your movement specialist. How does my audience know who they are listening to, who they are, getting advice from, and what's his background, if they can trust him or not trust him? So please tell us about your expertise, share that, and then tell us about this getting overwhelmed part.
Yes, no, thank you. I think it's a very important thing to do these days. Before you start listening to somebody, who am I listening to and why should I listen to them? Very, very important. So the quick and dirty is I have managed my own space myself, 5 orthopedic surgeries before I was 22. I was raised in a medical model. My dad's a doctor, my mom's a nurse practitioner. I have degrees in biology and psychology, study neuroscience, have more certifications and different things that I could possibly list here when it comes to strength conditioning, mindfulness, meditation, nutrition. I've run the gamut, but what I would tell you is what I've been able to do for people working over the last 2 decades, working with thousands of people, is getting people results. That's been my focus. So I haven't really been biased to any type of certification or way of thinking. My bias is getting a client results. And to be quite honest with you, I've really went on a journey 20 years ago to challenge some of the, I would say, core health paradigms, because when I was following them to a T, my body was breaking down. My wife's body was not doing great. We were suffering from different types of systemic autoimmune, depression, all kinds of different ailments ourselves. And so challenge some of those core principles, which maybe we'll get into in our discussion today, and really found things that created vitality. And that's really my whole platform, is we need to stop trying to be healthy and start focusing on vitality. And that's a completely different paradigm, which I'm sure we're going to jump into here. But if I was to say why anybody listens to me, why anybody gets referred to me, why anybody comes to see me or work with me, it's because I've gotten a result for a friend or colleague of theirs that no one was able to get for them. So for me, it's all about results, and actually creating the result a client is looking for in a very objective way.
Right. And you have a thriving private practice, and you teach online courses, and also you have written a book, Healthy to Vitality, which will be published in December. Am I right?
That is correct. That is correct. I've been working with people privately for the last literally over 2 decades in the spaces of physical rehabilitation, nutrition, and also mindset, and helping people with stress, et cetera, which we're going to talk about here today. And I teach online courses. I do master classes. So yes, there's lots of things happening. And the book is coming out in December, my first book, which is a summary of the 20 years of me, diving into these topics.
That's great. That's good. I'm sure a lot of people will benefit from that. So Matthew, you talked about vitality. People should stop just thinking about being healthy, but also think about vitality. Now, healthy itself has so many different meanings, mentally, physically, and people are still trying to struggle with that. But vitality, is it one level up, or is it the better level and much more achievable sort of a thing? Can you tell us about that? What exactly? It's like an upgrade of a particular software. And one step, the present was not great, but you suddenly find that the higher level up is not so higher level, but actually it is the better level, and that is more achievable and better in terms of functionality. Tell us about it.
such a great question, AJ. Thanks for asking it. So health, when you look up and some definitions of health, one that I seen pops up the most, and really it makes sense based on how we address health in our society, is the state of being free from illness or injury. Is that really it? Like, that's what we're shooting for? To be free from illness and injury? Like, well, there's got to be something better. To your point,
Right.
There's got to be more here. Please tell me there's more than just being free from illness and injury. My God, right? Vitality is defined as exuberant physical strength or mental vigor, the capacity for continuation of a meaningful and purposeful existence, the power to live and grow. I mean, sign me up for that. Like, that's the life I want to live. And what I have found is everything that we'll call the traditional way of taking care of your body, your systemic system, which nutrition is a piece of that, and your mind, is all inside of this paradigm of being free from illness or injury. That foundation to me is flawed. We shouldn't be talking about what's the best strategy to avoid illness or injury. Let's talk about what's the best strategy for exuberant physical strength and mental vigor,
Right.
for meaning and purpose, for power to live and grow. So it's a completely different paradigm. And so I like how you said that, like a software upgrade. To me, it's a completely different operating system. We're running on a different OS.
Yeah, and perhaps you are getting free of cost. It's like vitality is better, and you don't need to pay anything actually. If you are talking in terms of healthy versus vitality.
Well, that's another great point, AJ. I think the unfortunate reality, we'll call it unintended consequences, is there's not a lot of money in keeping people vital and healthy, right? Like, the money is in fixing problems, right? And so back in the day when you had like the medicine person in your village, the person that took care of the people in the village, they would get fired when people were sick because they weren't doing their job, right? They weren't there to help everybody when they're sick. If everybody's in the village sick, then there's a systemic problem here. We should look at that as opposed to finding how to solve all these problems that are popping up in the village. To me, that's the health model. This is a completely different model. This is a model of the medical person in the village is doing his job when nobody's sick.
Right. So now let's move away from that and talk about being overwhelmed. And this is such a big, you can call it a problem, an issue, or a social dilemma. Almost everybody, you feel saying this, I am overwhelmed by either work. There is too much on my plate. Instead of food, there is this overwhelmingness on their plate. And so why, and mostly it is either in terms of your personal life or work life. There is so much to do at home. One thing after other, and it never is over. Even in work, you are never over with your work, and you tend to keep on working. So firstly, how do you look at being overwhelmed as? What is this animal, or is it an illness? Is it a disease? Or is it some contagious disease? Everybody wants to feel, it's like being busy. I am busy. So sometimes, if I say I'm overwhelmed with work, so I feel important, and then others also make me, understand that I'm an important person.
Yeah, so I think you touched on a piece of the puzzle that I think is very important, AJ. But to answer your first question, like, how do I relate to overwhelm? I relate to it as a communication. I don't relate to it as something that's bad. I don't relate to it as something I need to get rid of. I don't look at it as something I need to manage or avoid. I think in the industry right now, we've villainized these emotions. We've villainized overwhelm. We've villainized anger, sadness, all of these things, we've turned them into villains that we have to eradicate, right? Which again is the health model, right? Like I have to get rid of this illness or problem that I have called overwhelm. But when you actually look at what the purpose of emotions are, an overwhelm is just an emotion. That's all it is.
Right.
It's a communication from our physiology and our biology. It's our friend. It's an ally. It's not an enemy that we have to like eliminate by doing breathing. Oh, if I breathe and focus on my breath, the overwhelm will go away. Do we want it to go away, or do we want to understand what it's trying to communicate to us? Because I don't think the body, 99 times out of 100, besides major pathology and major, which is I find the exception, the biology of our body and physiology is doing something to support us. It's not there to ruin our day. It's there as an ally. And so overwhelm, like any emotion, is a communication. So what's overwhelm communicating? It's communicating all the things you said. Like, we should pay attention. Yeah, we're trying to get too many things done at the same time. That's a good communication. Like you should probably stop focusing on trying to do 100 things, right? Overwhelm, that communication of overwhelm happens when we're trying to get everything done now. That's the only way to feel overwhelmed. Like, we look at all the things we have to do, and somewhere inside of us, we believe it all has to get done now. Well, that's impossible. That's overwhelming because it can't be done. So one of the simplest ways to integrate the communication of overwhelm, I'm not going to even say manage it or get rid of it, but to integrate the communication of overwhelm is to listen and say, you know what? I need to name what's most important to me, and I need to focus on that first. Most people don't operate inside of a context called what's most important to me? Have I named what's most important to me? Do I even know what I'm trying to accomplish today? Or am I just running around like a chicken with my head cut off, right? Getting pulled in a million different directions. I mean, I remember a time, AJ, this is a true story. When I had my clinic in LA, I had a clinic in Los Angeles when I was doing physical rehabilitation, nutritional counseling on people. I remember being in this state of overwhelm, and I kid you not, I was in my office, and some people may be able to relate to this, and you look at this part of your desk like, oh, I got to get this done. And then you look, oh, wait, no, I got to get this done. And then this other thing, oh, wait, that. I am doing a lap in my office. I'm literally running around in circles because every time something would catch my eye, oh, I need to get that done. I need to get that done.
Exactly.
You can relate probably, right? I think some people could relate.
Yes, even at home, you see a lot of people, friends and family I see, and that is where I sometimes can, I differ sometimes, but I can also understand this. And especially, women folk, they tend to, want the house to be spick and span, clean. And if there is, sometimes if there is some dish in the sink, then you want to get that thing cleaned off. But then after an hour, something else will pour in. Then you would want again that to be empty. Or there is some speck of dust in some corner and you have noticed it and you want to get rid of that. But then coming to the other side, a lot of people have that to-do list. Thank God I have never had a to-do list in my life. And the only time I'm having calendar in my life is to just manage things in terms of managing the guesting when I'm doing my podcast. Before that, I never used a calendar, and I don't need it because this is a paper diary. It takes care of just small little things, and I write it down. And it helps me because it is very much there. It makes me use my brain. It also makes me use my fingers. It also makes me use the pen. So I know I can still write. Otherwise, you forget even the handwriting part. Now, having to say, there is a lot of things in terms of technology. So the calendar does send me out notification, half an hour, 1 hour. It helps you remind. Till then, it's fine. I don't have too many notifications. I don't like that. But then how do you manage? Even in work, you write so many things. Even a small thing, you get that into that tendency of writing it. And your mind starts forgetting those things and start relying on writing. You remember, like earlier, we used to know how to switch on the TV without the remote. Now nobody knows that. So you start forgetting. So, but the issue is here, how do you manage? Again, I'm not using the correct. How do you deal with this positively? It is not supposed to be a negative word. So, Matthew, how do you deal being overwhelmed in a better manner, in a practical manner? And that there are some things which are in continuity. You will never be able to put a full stop to work, whether at home or outside, and relax immediately after that. How do you deal with this sort of a thinking that some people can tend to develop with time, or that's an inherent quality in that? So let's
Yeah,
talk about the solution.
sure. So we could talk about the practicality of it. So again, to me, it all starts with what am I trying to accomplish? What's most important to me? And, that's a process that I don't think a lot of people go through. And I think it takes time to really understand what is important to you and what's meaningful to you, and really understanding what are my priorities. Because at the end of the day, you can't get it all done, period, end of story. That would be the first thing I would invite people to just own. I can't get it all done, nor should I, because not everything is equally as important. And so once you identify what's most important, the way I do it is I have lists. I write things down, and I think it's a very important thing that you brought up, AJ, because you got to get it out of your head. If you get it out of your head and on a piece of paper, then your brain doesn't have to remind you of it all day long.
Right.
But I don't call it a to-do list. I call it a brainstorming list, because I don't relate to the list as things I need to do. It's a list of things that pop into my head at times that
Right.
may be important to do or may not be important to do. The way I determine what on my list gets done is I never have more than 3 things on my list any day that's imperative. Like, there's never more than 3 things I absolutely have to get done. But I name what those 3 things are relative to what's most important to me. And anything I do outside of those 3 things, I consider a bonus. And that I feel like is a very important thing, because if I get my 3 things done and then I get 1 or 2 other things, at the end of the day, I'm like, man, I crushed it today. But if I look at my same list and I look at it as I have to get all this done, and let's say I get 15 things done that day, I still feel like I'm defeated, because I never named what was most important and related to it as these are the most imperative things. The difference between important and imperative. I think everybody thinks everything's important, but not everything's imperative. And so when we can identify, well, what's mission critical to get done today? No more than 3 is my rule. No more than 3. After the 3, have at it. Just go into bonus time and celebrate the fact that you got into the bonus.
Right, Matthew. Is that also can be a case with some people, that they tend to become obsessive about it? So it moves beyond a normal sort of a overwhelming feeling, and it needs some sort of uh, intervention of an outside uh, help, suggestion. I'm not talking in terms of some medical medicines and all,
Yeah.
but maybe somebody who is able to help you see things in a better perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I've been on the phone with hundreds of people that are in a complete state of, I would even say, panic.
Yeah, that's where. Sorry to interrupt, but then it leads to certainly sometimes anxiety, and as you said, panic. So that
100%.
becomes then a bit of a concerning sort of a stuff.
Yeah. I mean, to me, when it gets to that point, it's our communication system basically saying, okay, you're not listening to me. Now I'm going to really make sure you listen. And so the volume just keeps getting turned up higher and higher and higher. And so, yeah, it's not easy to manage that on your own, because you can't see what you can't see. And so when somebody comes to me in that state, number one, acknowledging that you're there and reaching out for help, like, that's step 1. Like, you can't really do anything if we're not even aware or looking to change the situation I'm in. And so when someone reaches out to me or looks for some support, I do take them through the steps that I just named, which is, okay, I hear you're overwhelmed. What's the goal here? What are you trying to accomplish? I can't tell you how important that question is. Because when I ask people that question, do you know what most of them say? They say, I don't really know what I'm trying to accomplish. I just have to get all this done. And I'm like, why? So I play the be like my 5-year-old and ask why 100 times, right? It's like, well, why? Why do you need to get all this done? Well, I just got to. It's on my, okay, well, why? Well, it's because of my work. Well, why do you have to get it done for your work? Well, because if I don't, I'll get fired. Okay, okay, so is the goal here not to get fired? What are we trying to accomplish here, right? And so it's getting to the destination, because a lot of times I feel like we're making decisions and choices without putting the destination in our navigation system. It's like, well, where are we trying to go? Like, if someone asked me, Matt, is this a good technique? Should I breathe? Should I meditate? Should I take this herb? Should I stand on my head? Should I put a crystal next to my head when I'm sleeping? Like, what should I do, Matt? The only question I ask is, I don't know. Where are you trying to go? What are we trying to accomplish here? Because it would be like me saying, AJ, should I make a right or a left when I leave my development? What are you going to say? I don't know, Matt. Where are you trying to go? Oh, well, I'm trying to go to the supermarket. It's like, oh, well, if you want to go to the supermarket, you should make it right. Right? And so to me, what helps people to get out of that state, and when I see somebody come into that place in that panic, it's slowing down and asking, well, what are you trying to accomplish here? And we can name 1 or 2 things we can do to move you very objectively in that direction. And as soon as we identify that and start to put in the actions, you'll see that the emotional communication of overwhelm no longer needs to be screaming at you, because it's being addressed.
So that would be interesting to know. But before that, you come to that holistic sort of stuff. First thing is that suppose it's 11 o'clock and 12 o'clock at night, and one is feeling suddenly a bit overwhelmed and is feeling anxious. Now, that is a very crucial moment at that point in time for any individual. The person is not aware exactly what is happening. The person can only tell how he or she is feeling about it. Mm-hmm. And it can be a difficult moment if you are all alone. You just don't know. You are a movement and mindset specialist, expert, Matthew. Is there something at that point in time? It's like somebody is having a heart attack, then the doctor says you have what the tablet is. I don't know, maybe something that you put under your,
Yeah.
So that will help you. That will increase, help you and increase your golden hour. Perhaps that's what they call golden hour. That window, so that you can reach the hospital and doctors are able to take care of you. Have given them some time for your better. The same way, somebody is in that zone. You, as I said, you are a movement and mindset expert. Is it that they think in a particular manner so that they can, if they are at 100, they come down to say 50, 60, 30, 40, and then they realize, or somebody tells them that, listen, now it's time to take some help from outside. Or in terms of movement, is there something which can, either in terms of pressure or something, or anything that better that helps them, well, from both ways, like as I said, movement as well as mindset or thoughts that can help them come back from that moment?
Yes, no. So again, great question. So it's kind of looking at how do I manage the symptom of this experience I'm having in my nervous system, right? Like, what do we do in those situations? And that's an important. So the tool there is an important thing to have in your toolbox. So yes, if we're addressing the symptom, that hopefully will take us to the next step, calling this is a signal that I need to address something bigger. It's just like knee pain. If my knee hurts, what can you do to eliminate the pain? Well, you could take an Advil, right? But maybe we need to look at why your knee's hurting. So I understand your question. So if someone was to wake up and feel overwhelmed, panicky, etc., there's a couple things you can do with your breath that can shut off fight or flight. Okay, so what's happening in that moment is obviously the system is responding as if there is some type of emergency, right? It could be overreactive for whatever reason. And so there's a couple techniques that I have found to be the most powerful in those moments. And one of them is taking the deepest inhale you can possibly try to take, hold it. So if you took a deep breath in, if you could get it to 4 or 5, 6 seconds, hold it, and then exhale and try to double the amount of time on your exhale as your inhale. So if I did a 5-second inhale, I would try to exhale for 10 seconds. And now right away, you're probably not going to be able to do that. So maybe right away, it's like I can breathe in for 2 seconds. So it's like, all right, I'm going to try to exhale for 4. Now I'm going to try to get to 5 or 6. And so as you do that, you're basically getting the nervous system from what's called the sympathetic state to a parasympathetic state. And so you're through that breathing process, you're basically telling the nervous system to calm down. Now, after doing that for a couple minutes, I personally, I'm a heart math practitioner. I've been certified in heart math, a fantastic resource. But I have seen heart focused breathing. They have done some incredible research about just focusing on your heart. Okay, and I always have people just put their hand on their heart. So after you do that first, it's a little bit more aggressive. I'm taking that big deep breath in. I'm pushing the air out a little longer because sometimes you got to hit it a little harder. Sometimes just putting your hand on your heart and breathing doesn't cut it, depending on the state. But if you can do that for a minute or two and then put your hand on your heart and just literally try to breathe a 5-second in and a 5-second out, but focus on your heart. So what do I mean by focus on your heart? You can focus on the idea of your heart. You could focus on the actual organ of your heart. But what they have found is if you take your focus and just put your focus on your heart, and this is also a fun fact, if for those that may not know this, there is more communication going from your heart to your brain than there is from your brain to your heart. So your heart is actually doing more communicating to the brain than the brain's doing to the heart. So the brain is actually listening more to your heart than your heart is listening to your brain, which is really cool, right. Actually. We can take advantage of that. And so when we focus on our heart, we put our hand on our heart, we take those deep breaths in, it literally tells the brain that everything's okay. And it goes into this state called coherence. The Heart Math Institute calls it brain coherence. And when you can breathe in a certain way and you get your heart rate variability at a certain frequency and amplitude, they have found that your whole brain goes into coherence. And so what do I mean by brain coherence? It's like an orchestra that's now playing the same song. When we're in fight or flight, it's like the tubas are doing their thing, the drums are doing their thing, everybody's on a different page, and it's just a lot of noise, right? And so one of the ways we can create that coherence is through our heart. And there's some apps you can get that the Heart Math has. I use that with my clients a lot for these specific situations, and they really help. And the cool thing about the Heart Math app, I don't work for Heart Math, so this has nothing to do with me, just for the record. They have an app that gives you objective feedback about when you're actually in coherence, which is pretty cool. Because sometimes it's hard to objectify these things, right, AJ? It's so subjective. So I have found that it's called the Inner Balance app. It gives some objective feedback, and I have found that to be super helpful for clients in that particular situation that you're naming.
Right, Matthew. So, and in terms of movement, what should one do? One should just sit still on the chair, on the bed, or side of the bed, or some people keep pacing up and down. So, what would be the best, thing in terms of movement? Is there any particular thing that one can do that will also help in terms of the breathing exercise?
I think in this particular situation, this specific situation, I would recommend people get into whatever position is the most comfortable. So if it's comfortable to lie down, lie down. If you have a comfy chair in your bedroom, sit in your comfy chair. If you like sitting on the floor, sit on the floor. I'm more for getting the body to be comfortable when we're trying to enter that parasympathetic state. Movement is a stimulation, right? And so there's definitely a place for regulating the system with movement. But in this particular case, it's about being comfortable. Like, I don't think you need to get on a meditation pillow. You don't need to get into any particular position that's uncomfortable for so many of us. Like, just be comfortable. Be comfortable, whatever that may look like for you. And then just allow the body to relax. Like Yoga Nidra has some really cool techniques where they literally walk you through relaxing every part of your body, you know, starting at your feet and going to your ankles and your calves. And that I have found to be very helpful in those situations too, in leveraging the physiology of the body to help calm the system down. But in general, my recommendation to people in that situation is just be comfortable, whatever that means to you.
Right, Matthew. Now, is getting overwhelmed and stress, are they very similar to one another, or the same thing, or are they different? How should people look at that? Because you say that eliminating stress is detrimental to your health. You obviously mean it in a positive manner. Please help everybody understand both the part of it. One is overwhelm, stress vis-a-vis one another, and then what do you mean by that you should not try to eliminate too much of your stress?
Yeah.
What
so
people understand of it?
Yeah. So this is another like major paradigm shift when it comes to stress. So I'm so glad you brought it up. So number one, to answer your first question, what's the difference between overwhelm and stress? I don't distinguish between those two as far as the mindset is concerned. When you really break down someone who is in the state of traditional stress. So I also want to just acknowledge that there's physical stress to the system,
Right.
like sitting all day or, you know, getting hit with a baseball in your shin. That's a form of stress. And we're not talking about that. We're talking about more of the mental, emotional stress, just to clarify what we're speaking to here. And so when it comes to that, overwhelm, sadness, and all of these things are communications from the system that we need to address something in the space because it's not in alignment with who and what we want to be in our life. That's how I look at stress. The stress response is literally my navigation system saying, pay attention, you're going down the wrong, you're heading in the wrong direction. Relative to what's most important to you, we're not moving in the right direction. Okay, and that's a whole other conversation we can have, is how to define what's really important to you, because there's our physiological and biological needs that are number one. Good old Maslow helped us with that, Maslow's pyramid, right? And then there's the things beyond, are we safe? Do we have food, right? Those are the base communications. You can't override those. But from a standpoint of this communication system, it's basically telling us that we're either aligned with what's most important to us or we're not. And so coming from that framework, some of the latest research on the stress response, which really I apologize to any clients that might be listening to this who I've worked with in the past, because I taught you the wrong way. So I apologize. Call me and I'll give you the better information. This idea of trying to eliminate stress, but some of the latest research and some phenomenal, Aaliyah Crum from Stanford, Kelly McGonigal did a phenomenal TEDx talk. I mean, there's just brilliant people out there doing some really cool stuff. But what they found was that the thing that created all of the negative effects of stress, like decreased performance, diminishing health, and diminishing well-being, because what they found was stress can have this negative effect on people, but could also have this major positive effect, right? Because what is the stress response really? It's the system giving you resources to address something that's out of alignment. So it's increasing heart rate, it's giving you energy fast to address the situation. Well, that can also increase performance. Right. It actually improves immunity when it's on, and overall well-being. So they've seen that too. So what's the difference? Why does one create improved performance, better health, better well-being, and the other one killing people? Because that's real too. Stress is literally killing people. And what they have found, which is just mind-blowing to me, is it all depends on how we relate to stress.
Okay.
If people look at stress as a bad thing, if they look at it as something that's there, that's inhibiting them, that's an obstacle that they have to overcome, that they have to avoid, that's the thing, that's the reason why, to the point where they measured the constriction of our arteries. And the people that relate to stress as a bad thing, they're the ones whose arteries shrink. The people that are looking at stress as something that's there as an ally, as something there to support them, they're finding that arterial wall does not contract. I mean,
Right.
mind-blowing stuff, right? The other fascinating thing about the stress response, which just fascinates me about the biology of the body. So we know about adrenaline, and we know that gets released in cortisol, but one of the hormones that gets released in the stress response as well is a hormone called, oh my God, I just blanked. Oh my God, what I just blanked on it. Oxytocin, sorry, oxytocin,
Okay.
just escaped my brain. Oxytocin in some circles is referred to as the cuddle hormone. I know it's kind of funny, right? But this hormone triggers us to connect with people. It's a social hormone. And so when the stress response goes off, our biology is basically saying, hey, reach out to somebody. Hey, go support somebody. Hey, go ask for some support. I just think that's just amazing to me, AJ, how amazing our body is.
Okay. Got it. So you should treat it more like something which is there to help you to accomplish and rather to destroy you.
Correct.
It's like a lot of people I've seen, oh, I got to be happy. Why I'm not happy? Why I'm not feeling happy? But actually the person is happy. There's something called content. When you are contented, you don't have to shout from the rooftop that you are happy. And I guess you speak it out so many times that actually you become unhappy about being happy, because you don't know what being happy is all about. You also but I don't know if we are talking about the same thing. But Matthew, you say that the dangers of pursuing happiness, you talk about that. So what is that? Because see, all these things are so interconnected.
Yes.
Stress, being overwhelmed, then this about happiness, about all those things. And about that overwhelmingness is about getting communication, being in communication with yourself, with all the things in your body. So these are very intricate issues, topics, and people have to listen and understand these things, that these were made by God in a positive manner as a response of our system towards different ways. It was like you fight or flight. That was also because your brain will understand whether you can fight or flight is the better option. So how do you look at this particular happiness, that this issue should not become a problem? Happiness should not become a problem in itself. Please help us understand this better.
Yeah. So this idea that, pursuing happiness can be detrimental. And the reason why I say this is feeling happy is an emotion. It's an emotional state. And so if you remember from earlier in our conversation, I mentioned that emotions are communication systems. And so the name of when the goal is that my emotions communicate positive things to me all the time, then it makes we'll call them negative emotions, the enemy. Okay. And I'm not doing it right. So if I'm sad, or to your point, AJ, I'm content, but I'm not joyfully screaming from the mountaintops, I must be doing it wrong. It creates this kind of, I need to feel good emotions. I need to stop feeling bad emotions. If this is the goal, we're missing the point of life, in my opinion. Okay. Again, emotions are communication systems that tell us when we're aligned with what's meaningful to us and when we're not. So my invitation to people is stop focusing on trying to be happy and start naming what's most meaningful and purposeful to you, and let's focus on living that life. Let's live meaning and purpose. The byproduct of living in alignment with meaning and purpose is happiness, is fulfillment, is joy. That's the byproduct. It's not the thing, that's not the goal. It's the byproduct of living meaningful and purposeful life. If I could connect an IV to you that made you happy all the time, but you just had to sit in a room, but you couldn't go out, you couldn't connect with anybody, you couldn't learn, you couldn't grow, you couldn't have relationships, but you'll be happy, I don't think anyone would sign up for that, right? And so the goal isn't happiness. I understand why it's turned into that, AJ, and I think because a lot of people can't get these emotional systems that are communicating things to them, like overwhelm, sadness, and they don't know what to do with it because no one taught them what to do with it. People are just telling them to shut it off by doing different things. And not that there's not a place for that, okay? But when I say pursuing happiness can be detrimental, that's what I'm speaking to. And again, I use this navigation analogy, AJ, because when you put in a destination in your navigation system, the goal is to get to that destination. The goal isn't, I hope the navigation system is nice to me. I hope it's telling me I'm doing a good job. No matter what I'm doing, I just want it to tell me I'm doing a good job. No, that's not the goal. The goal is to get to the destination because that's what's meaningful to me. That's the goal, is meaning and purpose. And like I said, I don't think a lot of us take the time to define what that is.
Right. Earlier, as the song goes, don't worry, be happy. So it's not that your worries will go so you'll be happy. It's just that worries will always be there, but you have to be happy at the same time. And this is the way life is. You can't have, it's like you have different seasons. So it's like happiness and worries, they are all part of it. If you don't know hunger, how do you know what deliciousness is all about?
You got it. Exactly.
Yeah. So,
yin and yang.
Yeah. So Matthew, one more question related to this is that when you are in stress, getting overwhelmed, or, any other feeling that you are having, your other ailments also flare up. Something say related to back pain. Before that, you are all right. Suddenly, you are feeling some stressful situation, and the back pain comes in, and suddenly you discover you have back pain, and so, or any other pain. I've seen people around me as I have grown up. Even for kids, if they don't want to go to school, the stomach pain will. But that's only a small part. They're acting, or maybe they're actually feeling those butterflies if they haven't done their homework or something like that. Yes. But in the real world, in the adult world, is that how do you relate to this back pain? And how do you see it? And why are there so many people suffering from back pain? Is it that the quality of chairs have deteriorated and only the prices have gone up all across the world? Or is it that offices are not providing good chairs, good enough chairs across the world?
Yeah, I don't know if that's it, AJ, but yeah, why do people have back pain? Well, any physical pain in the body, and no matter if somebody comes to me, and I've worked with people with back pain, shoulder pain, like that's where my journey started, and when I had my clinic in LA, this is all I did was work with people that had, we'll call it orthopedic injuries. And what I learned through working with people for 20 years is there's 3 variables that will contribute to anybody who's in pain. There's 3 variables. I don't care who you are, these 3 things are variables. There's the mechanical variable, meaning like we sit in the wrong chair, or we're just too sedentary. Okay, so there's a mechanical influence to someone's back pain. Then there's the systemic influence. Maybe you eat McDonald's 7 times a day and don't have a very healthy diet. So there's inflammation in the system, and maybe that's contributing to it. And then the third piece, which is what you brought up here, is the mental emotional stress, right? Like my back only hurts when I'm stressed out. So those 3 variables are always influencing. I've never seen an example of those 3 not influencing. I don't care if you have ankle pain, knee pain, whatever, headaches, those 3 things are variables. So when I work with somebody, my question is which one of those 3 is having the greatest influence, because that's where we're going to start. Okay. And so just to speak to the mechanical piece, because I would say that this is a big one for most people because of what you just said. It's not that our chairs are not perfect, and I know you were saying that in jest. It's that we sit too much, period. Okay? And so the system was not designed to sit. Period, of end of story. I remember somebody a while back said, this is probably maybe 10 to 20 years ago, said, sitting is the smoking of our generation. And I was like, God, that's brilliant, and it's spot on, because the system wasn't designed to be sedentary. So because we sit so much, we lock our hips up.
Okay.
They get stuck in this hip flex position. Our hips are a ball and socket joint designed to rotate, but when they get stuck, the spine, the low back in particular, is not designed to rotate a lot. The gross rotation of our lumbar spine is somewhere between 14 and 16 degrees, depending on what book you look at. And so it's not a lot of rotation. That's why it lives on these ball and socket joints. But if we sit for 5 hours a day, those soft tissues around the hips get very stuck. And so the body always follows the path of least resistance. And so it starts to ask the spine to do the job of the hip. And the crazy thing about the body is it will do it, but it will tap out eventually. It's like, man, I can't do this anymore. And then we'll have back pain, we'll have herniated discs, we'll have all the things you hear about. And so that definitely is a variable, I think, for pretty much everybody, just because our society sits. But let's say there's an irritation in the spine. So there's a compromise from a mechanical standpoint, but now we're stressed out of our mind. Right. And so that area already has less tolerance for the system being inflamed. So it's the first thing to talk to you. And so some people, it's like when they're stressed, it's their shoulder. For me, I had ulnar nerve damage in my arm. Like when I get stressed, my arm would hurt because that was kind of we'll just call it the weak link or the compromise, what was compromised structurally. But if I had to say, why do most people have back pain? It's because we sit.
Some people start having pain on the right side of their heart, so they don't know which side their heart is. And
exactly.
Yeah, that can be very difficult to explain. Right, Matthew. You have put this very, very nicely, and I'm sure a lot of people will benefit out of this. Information, understanding of the human body, mind, stress, overwhelm, and happiness and contentment, or not so happiness and only contentment. Perhaps that does not gel sometimes, so that they can differentiate in all these things. Now, Matthew, talking about your type of clients, what is the type of people who connect with you for help, for assistance, for advice, for your as your clients?
Yeah, so I would say right now, the people that are coming to me or being referred to me mostly to work in my one-on-one practice are people that are, I would say right now, managing something in one of their relationships. I would say that's probably one of the biggest things, whether it's managing things with their children, their significant other, working with people that are just managing the space with their, parents that are aging, and how do I manage that? And, so I think the relationship thing is a big thing. And I think because of COVID and the fact that we were all kind of stuck in the same room with each other, all of this stuff came exploding out for people, things that we didn't necessarily were forced to face in some of our relationships. I would say right now, that's probably the space that I'm working predominantly with. But also people that come in with, I got a tennis player that just came to see me, who had a hamstring pain. So I have a very diverse clientele, and that's what makes it so much fun to work with, because I have some clients that are 16. I have some client who's 90 or 89 who just published her first book, so quite diverse. But if I had to name the place that I'm probably working with the most right now, it's helping people manage their relationships.
Yeah, I ask this so that people can know in what things they can connect with you, because I saw also some videos on YouTube of yours that in this gym and all, with all that instruction and back pain and how to do those things in the right manner. Those are very cool ones and very educative, and I'm sure if people which can watch those videos, they will certainly learn a lot of things which they can use for in their day-to-day lives, because I really like them, and I'm sure I will use them. In fact, I'll put details about that YouTube part of yours, so that people are able to see them on the YouTube description of this particular episode. So that will
Thank
help.
you, AJ.
Right.
And
So
I
Matthew,
also have a blog, AJ, that I'm putting
yes,
out content every week. So that's another place people can. And my thing
yes,
is about giving people value as much as possible. So
yeah.
I
In
can't
fact,
work with everybody. So
right. In fact, you must let's also share. You also share as to how people can connect with you, and what are the different ways that they can connect with you.
yes, my website's probably the best, MatthewLaBosco.com. I'm not super active on social media right now, but I'm starting to get more involved there. But
It
but
is
I am
okay. It
but
is okay.
is it okay, AJ? I'm not sure.
It is. It is. It is. You are content, but you are trying to be happy.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. See,
Yeah.
we're all in the same boat at the end of the day, aren't we?
Yeah.
But yeah, so my website definitely is a great place, and my blog is probably the two places. I also do classes and stuff, so that's another way you can work with me one-on-one at a little bit easier price point. So
Great, great. I'll put all that information on the YouTube description so that it can guide people to the right destination, that is you. So, my last question to you, Matthew, is about your book, Healthy to Vitality. What does this book entail? What can people look forward to when it comes out in December? What exactly will it have in terms of for them?
yeah, so this Health to Vitality, liberate yourself from the shackles of traditional healthcare and empower yourself to create a life of vitality and fulfillment. That's what this book's about. And it's really a synopsis of my 20 years of going through all this stuff myself, from the orthopedic stuff that I had to manage to the different systemic issues I had and my wife had. My wife is in the book, and she's an incredible ally of mine and partner in this, and has her story in it. She struggled with lots of different things. Her story's in there and how we navigated that. And then also this whole, how to partner with stress and how to partner with your emotions. I mean, it kind of points out some of the things that I think we need to be mindful of and just be cautious of. Like, hey, these things may not really be helpful as we thought they were. So I just kind of flag those things as I call it the health paradigm. And then I introduce the vitality paradigm and give people an entire framework on how to take care of their body physically for vitality, how to take care of their systemic state with nutrition for vitality, and then their mindset. How do I partner with my physiology and biology as opposed to fighting against it and trying to get it to shut off? So the book is literally my 20 years of working with thousands of people and myself that have gotten the results that I've seen for thousands of people. So there's also a ton of resources that come with the book. I have summary videos, templates. I am literally trying to give people the things that they can use so they can empower themselves to really live the life I think we're all here to live, which is meaning, purpose, vitality, and fulfillment.
Wonderful. Wonderful, Matthew. Thank you so much for all this information, for all this insight into human mind and the human body. Thank you so much indeed.
My pleasure, AJ. Thank you so much for having me.
On this note, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you once again.